All right, so welcome one more time to this brand new webinar, brand new program, brand new location we're coming from. I hope it all comes together. You never know when things change. But welcome to today's 1-hour webinar on our new Racial Justice Prevention Plus Wellness program. So I'll be walking you through this program today from our new location in beautiful St. Augustine, Florida. If you've not been here, please come visit. If not now, once the pandemic is over, and you'll really, I think, enjoy it. I've not met anybody who hasn't enjoyed visiting this historic town along the East Coast, northern Florida. Beautiful location and town. Lots of fun things to see and do here in St. Augustine, Florida. My name is Dr. Chudley Wirch, and I'm president and founder at Prevention Plus Wellness, LLC. We're really excited about today's webinar. I'm going to send everybody who's registered a link to this recorded session, and I will send an attachment, a 1-hour CEU attachment certificate for attending today's session. And so if you don't find it at the end of today, do check your spam folders. Probably was sent there, but I will forward to everyone who's registered a CEU certificate of completion, 1-hour CEU for today's session. So really very excited about today's session because this is our latest new program, a little bit different obviously than our other programs in that it doesn't focus specifically directly with substance use prevention, but nonetheless it is addressing a critical need in our society and across the world, this need for anti-racism behaviors to teach our young people about what that means, otherwise known as racial justice. And so I'm really interested in hearing from you, today's participants from throughout the country, maybe even abroad, who are participating today, what you think about this program, what you like, what you don't like, what you like, especially, particularly, what you find appealing about this program, and what you don't like or what you'd like to see changed in the future. This is our first attempt, but nonetheless, like all of our programs, this program, Racial Justice Prevention Plus Wellness, is based on the same conceptual model as all Prevention Plus Wellness programs. That is the behavior image model. It focuses on positive images that are designed to, that are cued or triggered in communications with young people. That increases motivation for change, and then capitalizing on that through using multiple behavior goal settings. So this is the same evidence-based practices, screening and brief intervention. Screening youth for current habits. They're just not health related. They're anti-racism related and racial discrimination related. Providing feedback about those behaviors, and again, cueing those positive desired images of youth, triggering, again, positive images of themselves in the future. This is an unconscious process that increases motivation for change, and then walking them through goal setting to improve their lifestyle. This is a prevention and wellness program. The focus is on preventing racism and promoting both personal and community wellness. So I'll explain more about that as we go along. So you can see the webinar objectives for today. There's 3 of them. The first is that we will together explore the manual contents to this new Racial Justice PPW program, that's Prevention Plus Wellness program, as well as the steps for implementing and evaluating this single session evidence-informed, if you will, evidence-based practices a strategy, which is screening and brief intervention. So we'll walk you through that. This program, one version at this point, is for adolescents. Secondly, we're going to review the PowerPoint slides to the program, which you use when you present the program, and you'll be able to see how you can present this both in person or online. So like our other programs, we've included protocols to provide this online especially during this pandemic experience that we're all witnessing. And then lastly, I do want to mention that like our other programs, this new program comes with a physical manual with a script to follow to implement it to a group of youth in person or online. And it also comes with a digital download. So you get in that download a link, you just copy it to your computer, and that includes your PowerPoint slides and all of your reproducible materials, all the materials you need to make copies of. So once you purchase this program, you don't have to order any other materials because everything is there. You just make copies of it, which will end up saving you quite a bit of money over time. We do also have our 2-hour live online program implementer training if you want to learn more about how to provide your program in person or online. So that's what we're going to be discussing today, exploring together during this 1-hour session. We'll leave plenty of time for Q&A at the end of today's session. But if you have questions, if you have comments, if something doesn't make sense to you or is unclear to you, all you have to do is, as we go along today, is find that live chat option and write your question or comment in there. So find your toolbar, find the More, M-O-R-E heading with the 3 horizontal dots, click on that, it'll open up your live chat, and then you could type in any questions or comments you want, and I will address those in the order in which they are provided, and that'll be at the end of today's session. We'll leave plenty of time for Q&A. All right, so let me go ahead and share with you the program manual. We'll start there, and then we'll go ahead and take a look at the PowerPoint slides. So let me just open this manual. Just give me a moment to pop it open. There it is. So there's a manual. That's the, again, new program, Racial Justice Prevention Plus Wellness. This is a racism prevention program which promotes racial justice or anti-racism, as well as wellness, overall wellness for individual youth, as well as communities. So here, the table of contents, very similar to other Prevention Plus Wellness programs. There are 7 sections or 7 chapters, if you will. There's an introductory section, which gives you a full explanation of the program. You could also read about what this program is about on our website, preventionpluswellness.com, under the programs heading. You can see all of our programs described there. But you have an introduction and a description in your manual, as well as a section 2 step-by-step directions for implementing your program in person in a group, to a group of youth, or online. And we also have the 2-hour live program implementer training to help you if you'd like. That's an optional. We highly recommend it, but we don't require it. By the way, I would say that I don't know who's signed in for today, and we'll do a little poll here in just a moment. But this program can be used for those of you in health and prevention, substance use prevention fields, in youth development, juvenile justice, faith-based settings, lots and lots of different settings where youth are, and professionals that work with youth. It can even be implemented at home. So this is a great program, and because it's a single session with an optional second session in the program, which I'll show you in a moment, it's very practical, and you could reach lots and lots of youth and make a significant impact. I'm hoping in your organizations, in your communities. So the third section is a screening survey and a goal plan. Again, like other Prevention Plus Wellness programs, this is a screening and brief intervention. That's an evidence-based practice according to SAMHSA, or the Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration. By the way, racism is identified as a social factor affecting the health of individuals and populations. According to the Centers for Disease Control, according to SAMHSA, again, Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Administration, according to research that's done. And so this is an external component, a social component, environmental component that influences the well-being of adults and youth. And we'll explain that a little bit more as we go through the content. You can see what I mean by that. So that's why this program could be used by substance abuse prevention and treatment specialists as well as health providers. Section 4 is the actual program script. The beauty is that it's scripted. You follow the script. It cuts down on the need for extensive training, although, again, we do have 2-hour training, a very convenient, very practical training to help you use your script, but the script will help increase fidelity and reliability across time and setting and implementers. Section 5 are the remote online protocols. So if you want to provide this live online or by video or even by telephone, you can do that. Section 6 are the evaluation materials. So you can actually evaluate the outcome of the program. It includes an immediate pre-test and post-test for your lesson. We do provide free program analysis. And so it'll help you see really if you're having an impact on behaviors of youth, which is really what we're after, or at least indicators of behaviors, predictors of behaviors. And lastly, Section 7, we've added some racial justice or anti-racism resources for you. So there's plenty of them online. You can find a lot of them by doing searches, but we've provided some really good ones, evidence-informed ones for you. So we hope that is helpful for you. So that's what we'll be going through today. We'll be walking you through all the table of contents. Before we do, let me just share with you a poll just to find out a little bit about everybody here. I'm going to launch a poll, just 3 very brief questions. It'll pop up. I think most of them you could answer multiple responses, but you have 3 questions. You'll see it in a minute. When you do, just answer these questions. Just take a moment and then scroll down. The first question is, have you or your organization ever implemented a youth racial justice or anti-racism educational program? Yes, maybe, no. Second question is, what are you most interested in when choosing an anti-racism or racial justice educational program for youth? This second item is multiple choice, so you can answer more than one item there. And then the last and third question is, what age groups are you most interested in when providing an anti-racism/racial justice program? And you could click on any of those items. So let's just give you a moment to respond to those 3 very brief questions, polling questions, so we can find out a little bit more about your needs. And so we could tailor the training today, the webinar today, a little bit toward your interests. So it's very important to find out a little bit about who's participating today. And that way we can, I could help achieve some of the goals that you might have coming into today's training. So do take a minute. Just very quick, 3 questions. I'm going to wait a little bit more, another minute or 2, to let everybody have a chance. We've got over half of you have responded. It'd be nice if we could have about 70 or 80% of you complete this very brief poll, get everybody involved. So do take a moment and answer these questions. We're almost up to 6 and 10 of you having completed this. We'll just wait another minute or so so that we can have everybody who wants to participate answer. All you have to do is click on the items and scroll down. I see Veronica has her hand raised. I'm a little nervous about clicking on that, Veronica, until everybody's completed the poll. Let me just see and make sure everybody's answered. Maybe you're having a problem with it. If so, don't worry about it. We'll have people respond that can respond. And just another 30 seconds, we're up to 65% have voted in the poll. That's great. Let me just see if there's any others that want to respond. And we're just about done. I'm going to shut off the polling in just a moment here. And so go away. That sounds great. So we did a good job here. We had a lot of people respond. Let's launch it and see what the responses are. Let's see what the answers are. So question number 1, have you or your organization ever implemented a social justice or anti-racism program? Most of you have not. 7 out of 10 have not. So this is something new for most of you. So here we are. We're all in the same boat. This is new for all of us. This is our attempt, our first attempt to implement, to create for the first time a a program that is not directly associated with substance use prevention, but certainly is important to substance use prevention, substance use and risk and health of young people in society. But this is a completely different program than what we've ever created before. Wanted to see if the behavior image model would work like it has in created all of our other programs. I think it has, but really that's up to you to answer. I'm looking forward to your feedback. Question number 2, what are you most interested in choosing an anti-racism or racial justice educational program? That it is evidence-based practice, and this is a screening and brief intervention. So the racial justice PPW program, Prevention Plus Wellness program, is an evidence-based practice because it is screening and brief intervention. Others of you said that you're interested in one that can be provided in person and online, which this program can be. It's easy to use. It includes pre-post tests, all of those things that you seem to be very much interested in, and that it addresses anti-racism behaviors as well as racist behaviors. Definitely does all of those things. So that's fantastic that you're interested in that. Last question, what age groups are you most interested in? And it looks like high school and middle school. Now we have just one version of this program. I believe it can be used for both middle and high school. And then when we do provide training, the online training for this program, we will discuss with you how you can tailor the program so that it is a more appropriate, if need be, for your particular age group and your setting. So very good. Everything seems to match up really well. I'm sorry, I don't believe, you may not have seen those results. Let me just take a minute and let you take a look at them as I was talking through them again. Number 1, most of you, 7 out of 10 of you, said you have not implemented an anti-racism program to this point. Number 2, you said the things that you're most interested in include evidence-based practices, but you're also very much interested in providing the program in person as well as online, and that it addresses anti-racism behaviors and racism behaviors. And thirdly, that you're particularly interested in the age groups of high school and middle school. All of those things are addressed in this racism, this racial justice prevention plus wellness program. Now we're back to the manual. Back to the manual. Let's take a look at it. We looked at the table of contents. There's the introduction. I do believe this program can be implemented wherever young people are implemented. It's very brief. It's scripted. I believe it'll be enjoyable for participants. I think it'll be convenient to be provided in any setting, and in particular, I think it'll go well with youth in schools and youth agencies, faith-based settings, juvenile justice, youth development organizations, homes, and other settings. So it can be provided by any adult or professional. So we're going to skip past the directions for implementation. And let's take a look at the content. So first of all, let's take a look at the screening survey. All Prevention Plus Wellness programs are screening and brief intervention. 3 parts to implementing them. First part is you screen youth for their usually health habits, in this case, anti-racism and racial discrimination behaviors. That increases awareness of their habits. Secondly, you provide feedback about those behaviors, particularly images that are highly positive, evocative of future images of themselves, being more racially just, and how racism is a negative or feared image, and then walking them through a behavioral goal setting to avoid racist behaviors and engage in what I would say protective wellness, promoting anti-racism or racial justice habits. What is racial justice? What are we talking about? What kind of habits and behaviors are we actually describing or focusing on in this program? You could tell what they are by looking at the screening survey, which is essentially the content for the program. So let's take a look at the screening survey. It's just 5 questions, so it's very brief. These are the topics or the focus in terms of behavior and content. Question number 1, have you ever contemplated or thought about whether you have any prejudices or stereotypes about people of a race other than yours? For example, believing that some racial groups are not like yours or that they're not as good in some way. Now, the youth answer is just yes and no. So this is one behavior that we're focusing on. It's contemplation, it's thinking, it's taking action to review your own racial biases and prejudices. Research suggests that we all have a certain extent have racial biases simply from living in our society. And most of the time, these biases are unconscious. So becoming aware of them is like a first step to improving your racial justice within yourself and within your communities. That's question number 1. Question 2, have you ever observed the racial makeup or the roles and jobs played by different races of people in your school, in your community, or in the media, including television and movies, magazines, online, or social media? And the young person answers yes and no. This is the second behavior. The first was contemplation, thinking, reflection. This is observation. This is bringing to the forefront the fact that a young person, as well as any person, can start being more attuned to racial mix and roles and jobs of people of other races in our environment, in our environments, I should say, both our physical environment as well as our virtual environment. So that's a second behavior, that is becoming more observant or observing. Thirdly, in the past year, have you read any articles, books, blogs, listened to any podcasts or radio shows, watched any videos, TV shows, movies, or socialized, hung out with, or become friends with a person of another race to learn more about racial justice or racism, yes or no? So this is about learning. This is about taking an active step to educate ourselves. It could be reading, it could be listening, it could be viewing, it could be actually interacting with a person from another race. All of those are very, very good ways to increase our knowledge and to understand how much we don't know about racism and anti-racism or social justice. By the way, I use the term anti-racism and social and racial justice interchangeably. That's behavior 3. And then now behavior 4, social racial justice behavior number 4. Number 3, by the way, was again learning. And lastly, number 4 is helping. It's taking action. Have you ever helped combat racism in your school, community, or online? For example, joined a group advocating for the rights of racial minorities, volunteered for an organization fighting racial discrimination, or posted something online or in favor of racial justice or against racism, yes or no? So those are the 4 racial justice or anti-racism behaviors that the racial justice PPW program focuses on. Again, in review, they are contemplating and reflecting on your own racial biases and stereotypes and prejudices. Secondly, becoming more observant of your environment, both physical and virtual environment. Thirdly, learning more about racism and anti-racism through reading, listening, viewing, and interacting with other races. And lastly, taking action, helping, doing something to change your school, your community online. Last question, all of these answered yes and no, so this takes just a couple of minutes to answer. And this is the racism question. This is the racial discrimination question. Have you ever engaged in any racial discriminatory behavior? For example, making fun of the appearance, accent, or names of others, using insulting language against people from other groups, telling jokes directed at other cultures, or favoring those from one race more than others, yes or no? So we're looking at both sides of the coin. We're looking at anti-racism or racial justice behaviors as well as racial discrimination behaviors or racism. That's the screening survey. Take just a couple of minutes. It's only 5 questions. And then at the end of the feedback, this is the goal plan. So the goal plan is going to be linked to this image of being a more conscious, caring, and connected young person. Very positive, desired future images. And the behaviors are those first 4 that are measured in the screening survey. Thinking about prejudices and stereotypes, observing your daily physical and virtual environment, learning more about racism and anti-racism, and combating racism in your school community and online. That's what we want young people to think about at the end of the program, and to set a goal in 1 or more of those areas to improve those anti-racist behaviors or that social justice, racial justice behaviors in their life, to take a step, a baby step, moving in the right direction in any of those: contemplation, observation, learning, or taking actual action to make a difference in their school community or online. And so they write a goal. It's very concrete, specific, co-signed. There's some positive feedback about the goal afterwards. So that's the goal setting. Let's take a look at the actual script so you can get a better sense of what I'm talking about. So you, like all Prevention Plus Wellness programs, it is literally a script that you provide. So there's a welcome section to the script. You show these slides. It says right there, show slides. You show the slides. There's actually 2 slides. There's the heading slide, Racial Justice, Prevention Plus Wellness. There's a second slide, a racism prevention program promoting racial justice and wellness for adolescents. So you can see some of the images. They're multicultural, positive, appealing images of young people of different races interacting with each other. Great, great images. So there's a very brief paragraph introducing the program. That's the script. You read the script when you present this to your group, either in person or online. And then after that brief welcome, the first part of the actual intervention is the screening survey, which I just showed you. So you're going to provide a screening survey to your youth, or you could show the slides, which show the screening survey on your slides if you're presenting this online. And you're going to have youth answer those survey questions either on a copy of the survey you present or on a blank sheet of paper if you're presenting this online. But the whole idea is to have youth assess their racial justice behaviors and racial discrimination behaviors, to start thinking about themselves and their habits and their biases and their stereotypes. And so then there's an introduction right there. And so you're going to show 2 slides introducing the program. Those are the 2 slides, and here's the content. You're going to read the content, follow the content, and it's going to introduce the whole idea of racial justice and racism, racial bias, and stereotyping to you. So that introduction, I think, is really important, sets the stage to discussing each of the targeted 5 behaviors. And then you're going to provide feedback on each of the 5 behaviors. Remember, the first behavior was thinking about, contemplating, reflecting about racial prejudices and stereotypes. There's a restatement of that initial question. Have you ever contemplated or thought about whether you have any prejudices or stereotypes about people from a race other than yours? And then the 2-step messaging process that are so familiar, so common to all of our Prevention Plus Wellness programs. The first step is to providing the benefits of this wellness behavior. And this wellness behavior is benefits from contemplating our racial prejudices and stereotypes. So there's a couple of slides for that. So you're going to highlight the benefits, including any kind of desired future images of young people. We'll take a look at this when we look at the slides. You'll see the content a little bit more clearly. And so there's 2 slides to that content, including some key facts about racism. So we do want to educate. There's 2 components to this intervention. The one component is to motivate behavior change. And of course, that behavior change is to get young people to be more active with regard to their own social, racial biases and prejudices and stereotypes. In other words, to get them engaged in anti-racism. But the other is to educate them about what racism is and about what racial anti-racism is, or so racial justice is. Sorry about, I'm having some confusion with mixing some of those terms up. So there's the content. There's the content. And notice in the scripts here, we have bolded the future images that are cued, these image terms, these highly evocative terms that are going to raise unconscious images of themselves in the future, being more naturally curious, fully present, socially engaged, self-understanding, self-confident, kind, being a contemplative young person. These are the images associated with that first behavior, which is contemplating their own personal racial biases and stereotypes. And then some key facts, which we've added here, really important statistics from a great site on racial justice, so that they're aware of some of the statistics and the reality in our society. For example, number one, that Black students are suspended and expelled from school 3 times more than white students are. That's just the reality. Those are the facts. So that's the first slides, I should say, the first part of our messaging, which is highlighting the benefits and the images associated with contemplating our racial prejudice and stereotypes. Everybody has prejudices and stereotypes. It's not a matter of yes or no, it's a matter of degree. And we're having young people reflect on those because of our environment, because we're all raised in the same world, the same society. We all have prejudice, we all have biases because of our experiences. So we want to raise those to the forefront. We want to make those, move those from being unconscious to conscious. And then secondly, what's the harm caused from not contemplating? So what are our feared images? If we don't take time to contemplate our racial biases, our racial prejudices, stereotypes, what happens? And so you show these slides. There's a couple of slides here. And so again, refusal to examine your racial biases prevents you from evolving into the best person you can be, etc. So really, really good content. Within this section, we stop and think. We have a stop and think section. Really important to have to increase interaction, but equally important to let young people have a chance to think, how does this relate to me? So we're going to have them write down 1 or 2 specific racial prejudices or biases that they have toward one or more races, and then write down some stereotypes that they have about people of other races. We want them to think about themselves, their own biases, their own stereotypes, their own behaviors. So that's why we have this actively built in to this racial justice PPW program. And so you're going to just continue to present the feedback. The second feedback is on the second screening survey item, which is the second behavior, the second anti-racism behavior or racial justice behavior, observing race in our environment, physical environment, as well as our virtual environment. So we're going to restate that question from the screening survey. Have you ever observed racial makeups or roles or jobs played from different races, not just in your school community, but online or in other media? And then what are the benefits from being an observant young person, observing race in our daily physical and virtual lives? What are those benefits? You see the great pictures, happy, smiling, multicultural groups of young people. We're going to trigger those positive images and other benefits from observing our environments, and a little bit more content on what is racial justice, what is anti-racism from a highly important area, source, racial equity tools, really, really good content. And we provide that extra information. And then how does not observing our environment for a racial awareness, how does that, what is the negative outcomes from that? What's the harm caused from not being observant in our physical and virtual environments? And then there's a stop and think, Very important. Write down one physical environment you will observe for racial makeup and positions next week, and then write down one virtual environment that you want to observe for racial mix next week. So we're going to get them to think and set some things to do in the future. Feedback then on the third screening item, the third anti-racism behavior, which is learning about racial justice. And there's a restatement of that question. Have you ever done this in the past year? Read or viewed or interacted with different races? Here are the benefits, including the positive images. If you were to learn more about racial justice or racism, there are some benefits, a little bit of content on racial discrimination in health, very important content to introduce them to. That content, I don't know if we have the source of that. Normally we do and have a link to that. I don't see it, but that'll be in your racism references, resources in the back of this manual. And then how, what harm is caused from not learning, not increasing our knowledge about racial justice and racism. What's the harm caused by that? And then stop and think about yourself once again. List some methods that you'd prefer to learn more about racism and racial justice. Then feedback on helping combat racism. This is taking an actual active role in changing and making things better in your environment, either physical or online. Here are the benefits to that. You become more socially active. You actually increase, it shows that you have inner strength, you have courage, you have leadership, that you're actually trying to make a difference in your school and your community online. That shows you're kind and loving and caring person. Those are some positive benefits and images. And then if you don't take action, what is the harm to that? Well, you're, by not taking an active stand against racism and for racial justice in your school, community, online, you're passively consenting to racism. So those are some of the problems with it. And stop and think. Write down one specific way that you might like to promote racial justice or fight racism in your school community, and do the same for online or in social media. The last bit of content is on racial discriminatory behavior. Here's where we talk about the other side of the coin. To this point, we've been talking about anti-racism behaviors or racial justice behaviors. Now we're going to be talking about racist behaviors or racial discriminatory behaviors. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how racism harms youth well-being. We're going to look at some recent research, particularly meta-analysis of research, 214 published studies. And we're going to share this with youth because they're going to find out that the perception of racial bias, the perception of racism or ethnic discrimination to young people has a tremendous negative effect on their health. Those young people that experience this have more depression, greater distress in their life, poorer self-esteem, lower academic achievement, less academic motivation, greater risky sexual behavior, substance use, and more association with deviant peers. So there is a tremendous effect on the mental, the physical health and well-being of youth that perceive racial or ethnic discrimination in their lives. This is why this brings this back to why this is important from a substance use prevention and a health promotion perspective. And then secondly, what are racial discriminatory behaviors? When we talk about racism, what is that? So there's some categories that are highlighted, and then we're going to have young people stop and think. But first, we're going to highlight those categories. You can see them from refusing to cooperate or interact or help other people from other races, to verbal abuse, to racial propaganda, to inciting others to believe in racism, to communicating racial ideas online, to supporting institutional racism, which is very much a prominent topic today, to committing physical assault and harassing other people from other races. Stop and think. Write down what racist or racial discrimination behaviors you've committed in the past. We've all done some in our past, and write down which ones you'd like to improve or to avoid or stop doing in the future. Very, very important to get them to stop and think, young people to stop and think. And now we're going to recommend how to increase racial justice and wellness in their schools, communities, online. And again, it's going to be a review of those 4 anti-racist behaviors, including, of course, most importantly, avoid racial discrimination. And then that goes right into our goal plan, which I had showed you a little bit earlier. Now you're going to have young people, now that their motivation is increased, we're going to have them not just pledge to avoid racial discrimination in the future, in the next 7 days, but also improve 1 or more anti-racist or racial justice behaviors. It could be contemplating, observing, learning, or taking actual action in their physical or virtual environments to increase racial justice and to reduce or to eliminate or to fight against racism. All right, that's it. That's the content. By the way, there's a second optional lesson. This is if you have time and you want to do a follow-up lesson, this is a tool for you. So even though this is a 1 lesson screening and brief intervention, you can make it a second lesson if you want to. You can make it a 2 lesson intervention. We have online protocols to provide this program, like all Prevention Plus Wellness programs, live online, by video, or by telephone. And we have built-in evaluation materials. We have a pre-test and a post-test that measures each of the targeted behaviors in this lesson: contemplating, observing, learning, and acting against racism, as well as racial discrimination behaviors. These are measured on a 5-point scale. These are 2 measures, by the way. This measure in the next year, how likely are you to, is a behavioral intention measure, most highly correlated predictor of future behaviors. And the second measure is the social norm, how many people your age engage in these anti-racism and racism behaviors. Same measure, pre-test and immediately post-test, with a couple of open-ended items as well at the post-test. So these pre-test and post-test measures are available in a scannable form as well as an online form if you provide this program online. We also have an instructor survey that you can assess your quality of implementation. And lastly, a program fidelity checklist. Okay, that's a walk through the manual. Now let's take a look at the actual slides themselves. So you can see a little bit more closely, perhaps, some of the content. By the way, if you're interested in a sample of this program, we could send you an electronic sample that you can review. And then I'll include that with a follow-up email to you. So if you want to request a sample, take a look at it a little bit more closely, you can do this. So here's the slides that you use to present this new Racial Justice Prevention Plus Wellness program to your youth in person or online. There's the 2 introductory slides, and then it starts with, and it cues you along with your script to complete the Racial Justice and Wellness Screening Survey. But what we've done is we've included the screening survey questions here in the slides. So if you do present this online, you could have your youth answer these questions on a blank sheet of paper. And so those are the screening questions, all 5 of them. And then launching right into the introduction, you follow your script for introducing this topic of racial justice and wellness. And then you repeat the first screening survey question, which is about contemplating prejudices, racial prejudices, stereotypes. You provide positive benefits about engaging in that kind of activity, about thinking about our racial prejudices, stereotypes, some key facts about racism, harm caused if you do not start thinking about your racial behaviors, your racial prejudices and stereotypes, and then stop and think, getting them to think more about their own habits, their own behaviors, their own biases, and then so forth. So you're going to go through that feedback, You follow these beautiful slides, great images of young people together, different ethnicities, different races. And then there's going to be recommendations for increasing racial justice and wellness. Those are the 4 behaviors, plus avoiding racial discrimination, and then complete a racial justice goal plan. So you can use the goal plan that's included in the manual, or you could just follow the slides, or you can do both actually. It's the same goal plan either way. It's just that the slides show it, including signing and co-signing, and then a congratulatory statement. So that's it. That is the program. I'm going to stop here. I know I've gone really rather quickly through it, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview. I didn't want to spend the whole time on going over all the content. Remember, I'll be sending you a link to this recorded session, and I'll also send you a link if you want to request from us a electronic redacted version of the program for your review so that you could study it a little bit more. So that's what I'm happy to do, and everybody who's registered today will be getting a 1-hour CEU certificate of completion. So let's see if anybody has any questions or comments or want to have any discussion about any of these. I'm going to first go to the Q&A, and then I'll look at the live chat. So under the Q&A, it looks like we got something from Brian. Said, have you ever done research on pictures that you use in your program? All youth are healthy, happy. Marginalized youth often look different from these pictures. Longer hair, baseball hats, different jeans and shirts. That is a fascinating question that you're raising. So what we've done is we believe that from our research that it's the image terms that are perhaps more powerful in terms of raising future images. So these desired benefit terms about being more caring, connected, that kind of thing, kind and loving and supportive and courageous are probably the most important component to increasing motivation for change. The images are really designed to show representations of themselves. So the question you're raising is a very important one. I mean, we haven't done the research, so I don't know. I don't know if we switched out some of these, some images with youth that are not as appealing, not as healthy, not as happy, whether that would be more or less efficacious. I could just tell you that the model that we're using, the behavior image model, really focuses on positive imaging. So if you look at advertising, for example, you're going to want to show appealing images for the most part. So the negative images, however those might be defined, can actually be barrier to communication. That said, we haven't done that research. I think that's a fascinating idea. And so a look back at that literature a little bit more would be important, and doing a comparison of images I think would be great. But in this case, what we're staying close to is the behavior image model, which focuses on positive images, appealing images. Now that is supported in research and in theory and in marketing advertising for decades. So much more likely to have a more positive, a greater effect on increasing motivation and changing behavior if the images are appealing than if they are negative. To give you a health example, we believe showing positive, healthy youth more effective than showing a young person hugging a toilet bowl, throwing up after drinking, which is much more common. Those negative images are much more common in medicine and in public health, but they're not as effective. Now, what you're saying is a little different. I understand that. So I'm going to stop here because I'd love to chat with you about this, obviously. I think you raise a fascinating question. I don't know. I think just providing this to youth, measuring pre-post outcomes, I think is the first start. And then if you want to tinker with imaging, I think that could be really an important experiment to look at. We have not done that work at this point. Thank you for that fascinating question, Brian. I'm not sure I answered it for you. If I didn't, let me know what you think. Wondering if you have conversed about this. Wondering if you have conversed about this. Not sure what that means. Can I get a sample, please? Yes. Sheila, I'll send you a link so that you could request that sample, and I'll be happy to send you one to take a look at. Thanks for the overview. Ethnic culture groups implemented in these programs. What ethnic culture groups have implemented this program? This program is literally brand new this week. Within the last, I'd say, 3 days, 4 days, we've just released it. So it hasn't been implemented. So it's now up to you. You have an option, and we discussed this in the training, in our 2-hour live training, how to tailor the program. So in particular, this goes back to Brian's comment, if you want to switch out some of the images so that the images are more representative of the population that you're implementing this to, then you're welcome to do that. And we could talk to you about that tailoring process. It's very simple, and you can go directly to the PowerPoint slides. Normally, again, we highlight that we want the images to show representations of the people that are viewing that program. Whether you want to show other images, that's up to you. You've got a pre-post test that then can measure reactions to that program and to those images. Thanks for the overview. That answered that. What questions regarding racism perhaps shouldn't be the same for BIPOC as for white youth? Okay, so the questions regarding racism perhaps shouldn't be the same for other racial groups as for white youth. That's an interesting statement. That's very thought-provoking as well. The question, so what Sarah is raising is that, as I understand you, Sarah, is that this program should be different if you're going to be implementing it to different races. So you might have different questions. That's something to think about. I mean, again, the assumption here for this program is that all races will have certain biases, racial stereotypes. Clearly, they'll be different for whites versus blacks versus Latina versus, et cetera, different ethnicities. But the issue is, do you really have to have a different program, different questions for each of those racism? That's not the case here. And so, again, I'm not sure about that. I think that's an interesting thing to think about. And again, it goes back to who you're implementing this to, who you're trying to change, who you're trying to have focus on anti-racism. I think all youth can improve their anti-racist biases, their racial biases, racial prejudices, and their anti-racist behaviors. So across the board, but certainly I think the real focus is thinking about our white youth in particular. All right, the experiences are vastly different. Are these mostly conducted in groups where there's diversity in participants, or are they participants mostly in homogeneous groups? That's up to you. That's up to you as to how you want to implement the program and evaluate the program. I'm not, I'm thinking that this is going to be used in educational settings with groups that are as they are, that we're not going to, get together groups of certain races to present this to, but that you're going to present this in real life settings, whether that be schools, whether that be faith-based settings, whether, what I'm talking about, that are real existing groups of youth in organizations and in communities. Is the behavior image model rooted in equitable research and data points? You could learn more about the behavior image model on our website, preventionpluswellness.com. We have a logic model. You can take a look at that. But no, it comes from a more of a health model, a behavior change model, which shows that positive images and modeling have a tremendous impact on the behavior, health, and other behaviors of young people. And that's supported by research and in self-image and future desired image and social learning, social cognitive theory, and on and on. These are tremendous questions. And by the way, you're challenging me. I'm not sure I'm answering them very well. Again, this is a completely different program than our other programs, because our other programs have focused on health behaviors. So it's going to be very interesting to see what people think of this program. And the real thing that's going to happen, the real test is going to be, how is it working in your setting? What do your youth think about it? And so that's why I really think using that pre-post analysis is important. What are their reactions to it? Is it having an impact on increasing anti-racist behaviors, decreasing racial discrimination behaviors? That's the truth of the pudding right there. Have these trainings been discussed in context such as perceptions, beliefs, behaviors, influence, police, community interaction? I think all of that can be a follow-up discussion, but this is a rather focused, this is educational to a certain extent, as I mentioned earlier, but the real focus is on behavioral change. The real focus is on motivating young people to change, to increase their anti-racism behaviors, their social justice behaviors in their schools, in their communities, online. So the real focus is, like any screening and brief intervention, is on change, is on changing individuals and getting them, and you can see what the behaviors that we're focusing on. Again, the 4 anti-racist behaviors: contemplation, observation, learning, and taking some actual action, as well as avoiding racial discrimination habits. So that's the focus. It's action, it's behavior change. This session is needed, and I believe it will help in combating barriers. Great webinar, thank you. And perhaps share this with drug-free community coalitions. Reach out to community anti-drug coalitions of America and CDC, which now administers ONDCP. Well, thank you for that suggestion. I think that's a very interesting thing that we certainly will follow up and explore. Let's take a look at the live chat. Thank you, by the way, for all of those very, very thought-provoking. And as you can see, I'm sort of struggling a little bit how to answer them, because this program is so new to us. And really, we need to have people like yourselves test it out. We need to have you see what the reaction is from youth, from providers, from parents. This is really a challenging topic. It raises a lot of emotions, but it is so critical. And the focus here on this program is not so much, again, education, or as other programs are already out there. the focus is on behaviors. What are the behaviors? And so if you look at the literature, I think these are the behaviors, these anti-racist behaviors are really critical to making a change in our schools and communities and online. And youth are the people, are the natural people to be educating about this, to get them to think about their habits, and then to see if it's actually going to have an impact in their lives and actually eventually in their schools and communities and online. It's a great tool. I mean, again, you're having them reflect on their own behaviors. You're giving them positive images, cueing desired images of themselves, being more racially just. You're giving them an opportunity to set goals to improve their personal selves as well as community wellness. I mean, it's a great program. Again, I'm biased about it. I think it's a great program. It has really great potential. Does it need to be adjusted in various settings in different populations? Undoubtedly, it will need to. That's why we discuss tailoring in our 2-hour live online program implementer training. This may need more tailoring than some of our other programs. I don't know. But then again, I think getting it out there and testing it and seeing what the impact is having or not having on youth is really the key. Okay, that's all right for raising your hand. Please also send me the link for the sample. If I have this, I'll send everybody a link so that they can request a sample so that you all can take a look at it. All right, we're out of time actually. Any last questions or comments? I don't want to miss anything. I'm going to go back to the Q&A, make sure I didn't miss anything there. I did miss one. Let's see. I believe starting at the base of contemplation is great to start with all groups. It begins with questions given and raised, definitely. And then lastly, are there trainings for educators? In order to give anti-racist education, educators need to be anti-racist themselves. There's no doubt that there's some truth to that. So again, the premise for this program is the reality that we all were raised and we all have our own racial biases and stereotypes. And the focus on this, the training that we offer is for program implementers. And while I hear what you're saying, and I believe it's true that all adults could benefit, including teachers could benefit from anti-racism education, we want all educators to start implementing this. And by doing so, they'll understand perhaps, and maybe even think about their own habits, maybe even set their own goals. But the focus is not on them, it's on the youth. So we're giving teachers the tools to motivate their youth to increase their anti-racism behaviors. In the process, they may become more healthy. Let me give you an analogy to that. When we train teachers or other adults to implement, let's say, our evidence-based sport prevention plus wellness program, which is an alcohol and drug prevention program, which addresses physical activity, healthy nutrition, sleep, stress control. We don't first train the teachers to make sure that they're physically active, that they're not abusing alcohol, that they're eating nutritiously, that they're controlling their stress. But we give those teachers the tools to turn around and to educate, more importantly, motivate the youth to engage in those behaviors. We feel that you don't have to be perfect to be able to educate others to be better. And in the process, they could become better. That's just a thought, that's just a reaction to it. But anyway, thank you all for your outstanding questions, your comments. God bless you for what you're doing for youth to improve their health and to improve their well-being, to improve community, school wellness. And if you have any questions, if there's anything you want, if you want to take a look at a sample of this program, let me know. I'll send you a link to request it. I'd love to have some of you try this program in your with your youth in your youth settings. and to see what kind of an impact it may have or not have. Love to work with you in doing that. So thank you for attending. I know you're all busy. I'm going to let you go, and I hope to be hearing from some of you in the future, and I hope we could work together. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon, everybody. Bye-bye.